So, welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and today Jason Christopher is back. And yeah, we are going to talk a little bit about pharaonic symbolism that is plastered all around us if you have the eyes to see. But before we do that, I would like to welcome him back, and he has some interesting news because he will be coming to the EU and he will speak in front of the EU Parliament. So, Christoph, welcome back and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was invited. There's a contingent of medical doctors and scientists that were invited. They did not bully their way in. They were invited by members inside the EU Parliament to expand on sort of what really went on from 2020 to current day. And there's many high-profile experts that are going, and they all have their area of expertise, but the committee thought there will have to be a person that can explain the coercion, the psychological coercion tactics, otherwise known as mind control and brainwashing and behavior manipulation or behavior modification, that were used against the public through the media in order to sort of corral large swaths of the population in one direction or the other. So I am traveling with this group. I think there's three non-scientists, three non-medical doctors that have different areas of expertise. And I am the media coercion expert that will be simply reviewing the cited psychology for the EU Parliament members, showing that, modifying the behavior of the group is a very old science. If there is any science that's settled, it's the science of psychological manipulation.
Yeah, and who prompted this? Who invited all of you?
This is, I don't know who invited. We are getting that information soon because, that matters for how we present and we want, of course, we want to know who invited us. Or we walk it into a crossfire, or we walk it into some friendly arms. But this is the third year this group has traveled. The first year, I think they went to Italy. The second year, they went to Rome. And every year they've gone, they're being given more leeway. Some topics in the first year were off the table, like the shot. And now everything's on the table. The politicians are very interested in exploring the idea that could potentially have been manipulated. And just for a side note for your listeners, if anybody could go to, it's called internationalcovidsummit.com. That's the website, www. International COVID Summit. If people could donate as well, that would be greatly appreciated. I don't need the donation. I was being gifted financially by the ether for my hard work. But there are some doctors that are under fire and have had their various practices squashed. And I will guarantee anybody that donates that it will be put to extreme good use and will just move the truthful agenda forward a couple more inches in a very big forum, and you never know what could happen from there going forward.
Yeah, great. So I wish all of you a lot of success. That I think this is necessary. And I'm even surprised that they are willing to listen, I have to say.
I think at this point, there is a general 100th monkey syndrome, vibrational communication between all humans now, that you have to literally pick your side. I think everybody knows at this point we're dealing with unbridled evil that is death-centric and terror-centric. And I think they know we're in a situation of either we deal with them or they're going to deal with us. There is no middle ground. And we know the numbers, the physical numbers are in our favor. The artificial intelligence is in their favor. So we sort of, I think there's a lot of politicians saying, you know what, I really don't think I'm on the right side of history here. I can see this morphing into something completely beyond dystopian, into, frankly, what could just be a devilish satanic horror film 10 years down the road. And I think people are starting to understand it's time to stand up.
Mm. Yeah, why I find that so surprising, I saw a tweet by a young lady, and she said, I don't want to live in this country anymore. And she was talking about Germany. And the reason why was her mother is in hospital. She's dying. And but they had to, and she has trouble breathing right now, but they had to put the mask over her face anyhow. So, and she was so upset and really, really desperate. And I guess that prompted this the statement, I don't want to live in this country anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, we have a big issue spiritually. We're putting money above morality. And we've lived inside this artificial system so long, as you know, the nurses and the doctors have been raised in this artificial system that supports them artificially with paper money and fake currency and all the pleasures that, of course, evil entity would provide its followers, its loyal henchmen. And so when someone in the hospital has said, either you can live inside the system and live as you know, or you can quit and start living back in the creator's system, back in nature, feed yourself, clothe yourself, provide energy for yourself, and do things yourself. They simply don't have the practice. So what looks like cities and looks like educational systems, these are actually artificial systems of survival that have been carefully crafted by a dark force on this planet to make people unable to bond or live in the natural world.
Yeah. So I also know you want to do a documentary, or have you already done it, or is that a future project? So what's going on that front?
Well, when I got invited, whatever is the top priority, everything else gets dropped. So we haven't dropped the documentary idea. We are going to do it interview style. We have 8 candidates that would actually be amazing to be interviewed, and we're contacting them right now. It would be superstar after superstar after superstar. The loudest mouths in the truth movement and the mind control movement, and really review what went over the last 3 years, and also review how old this technology is. This is very old. This is not new. There's nothing new under the sun.
No, absolutely not. And so that means you will start doing it a little bit later. Now, next month comes the trip.
We're probably going to try and get it finished for the end of this year, because it's something people need to know. It's if they don't know, like, it doesn't matter if we're talking about, say, the vitamin K shot or the ultrasound, Teflon pens, mammograms. The belief in these, number one, these things are the opposite as advertised, and they've all been sold in the same ways through the same psychological manipulation tactics. And the documentary is meant to say, these are the tactics, this is the science behind why they use the tactics, and you know, they're getting a cause and effect, and they're using these advertisements always to have you hurt yourself, but you participate in the hurting of yourself. So this is their primary attack modality, is that they'd love to push a lie under your skin. They'd love to poison you outright by their own hand, but it's too obvious. So they have to use the psychological manipulation tactics. So you do to yourself what they dream of doing. They also don't have the power to do it by force. So they're left with this fine area of psychological manipulation where you destroy yourself by your own hand, and are also confused about said destruction, where you can't stop, you can't get healthy, you can't get wealthy, even though you try. It's because there's a part of the brain that they know how to access that'll make you destroy yourself in seconds, and you'll have a real hard time reprogramming above or out of the program they inserted first.
Mm-hmm. And when do you think that started, that programming of us, right from the get-go?
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, there's trauma-based mind control, which is thrown at a lot of people as soon as they're born here, especially men with the circumcision. But the whole foundation of psychological manipulation goes back to a country called Media. It was you can look it up, you'll get it on Google, an actual country called Media, and they were where that country is no longer there, but it was where Iran is today. And they used to court kings and queens of the Mediterranean and show them for a very large fee how to use basic psychological manipulation tactics against their population. And it has to do with interfering with eyesight. It has to do with repetition. I'll give you one example. When there's a bright light in your eye, you can't see effectively. Now, that might not seem like a big deal to the average person, but if you put the electrodes on your brain and sort of measure your brain, there's a change in brain function because the whole system kind of admits it can't see the physical lay of the land properly, which means you're open to attack. And so when you're open to attack, the best method, like if you can't physically see the attack, there's a secondary neurological system about being hyper compliant and obedient. Because if I can't see you attacking me and you kind of get right in my face, I only recognize you or become aware of you because my eyes are down when you're right in my face. Well, I don't have time to defend myself physically, but I can defend myself by being compliant and sort of being friendly to you and do what you say. That's a very successful way the body has developed of protecting itself if the eyesight is interfered with. So this group used to say, build the central square, and certain times of the year you'll put your podium here and you'll have the sun behind your head and pick the hours where it's blinding the populace. And then they become compliant to command because their eyesight is interfered with. So this is one modality of mind control that you can do without technology. And of course, maybe even the second one that's very common is that would be a raised stage, okay? And it's being shown psychologically, if I rotate my head back and look up, it triggers this infantile position that you are engaging with a much larger human. Mm-hmm. And so the compliance is instant if the head cracks back. So they would say, raise it up, make sure you're high enough, you're standing, and make sure they sit. Because in the sitting position as well, you're in a very vulnerable position for attack. If someone's standing and you're in a position, a seated position, your body is already well aware. It's a survival-based mechanism, is that you're at extreme disadvantage for physical attack because they can get at you very quickly. So the body would, sort of hyperactivate this compliance system if you're sitting. It's going to hyperactivate it if the eyes are interfered with. And there's other ways to hyperactivate this compliance program that's natural in all humans. And compliance just means you're going to do what you're told. So this fine art form of manipulating the environment to increase compliance in the public was taught to kings and queens by the psychological manipulators. They would call them magi, like magic, like Jedi. That's where the word Jedi comes from. It comes from magi, and magi comes from this group, the Media.
Mm-hmm. That is what we read in the Bible as Midianites.
Midianites, tell me about that.
Yeah, that is a tribe in the Bible, Midianites.
Wow. And yes, and they would probably have the word night associated with them because they'd only push darkness. The thing about this technology, I mean, if I was over you, you're sitting, I'm standing, maybe I'm blinding your eyes at a concert. If the sun's not there, that's what the concert lights are for. I can make you obedient to eating broccoli, eating cauliflower, exercising, drinking clean water, getting to bed on time. It's not a dark magic. It's just the heart of the magician that directs the magic.
Mm. And okay, not in terms of a concert, but let's say, wouldn't blindfolding somebody work in a similar way?
Absolutely, and that's why they blindfold torture victims in the CIA. Waterboarding, you're upside down, you're sitting, you're tied to the seat. It's all about making you defenseless, which makes you more compliant. That's what the torture techniques are for the CIA. It's always about, sometimes they use drugs. Drugs have also been, the Blue Nile lily is hallucinogenic. So there's also other hallucinogens that the media magicians in the country of media would endorse. Any toxin will do anything that disrupts brain function, caffeine, alcohol, marijuana. As soon as the brain becomes confused, it knows it's at a severe disadvantage in regards to safety, because that's why you can't drive a car when you're drunk. You're not allowed to drive a car when you're high. Your brain is malfunctioning. So they just said, whatever sort of psychoactive substance you got around your area, maybe you could make it, say it's a harvest dinner and you bring in the beer. And if you can get the people drunk, you're going to make them more compliant. Then you make them sit. It's even more compliant. Have it at sundown or sunrise, even more compliant. And, you could use fearful rhetoric, even, induce the fear. And you're just getting compliance on top of compliance on top of compliance. And then maybe you ask for taxes, or you ask people to bring their children forward for the sacrifice, which has more compliance-based psychological aspects, seeing a child pass. There's all kinds of stuff they've honed and fine-tuned over the millennia that the average person would believe is simply hocus pocus. But the TV is, if you know this technology, the entire TV spectrum, the movie spectrum, it's all black magic, hocus pocus. And it's there to control the thoughts and the behaviors and the perceptions of the people, to basically make them believe lies is truth. And it's not just any lies. It would be particular lies where you live them out, you become more disempowered, more dependent, more financially destitute, more sick, more childlike. This is their wheelhouse, is that you can't farm. They know you can't farm lions. I mean, imagine a lion farm. It's a pretty scary operation. Who's going to go in and get the lions, right, during harvest time? You're risking your life. But if you could make the once powerful human lion like a lamb, then farming the humans is much easier. So you want them sort of disempowered and on all levels. Spiritually, they don't know why they're here. Intellectually, they lack knowledge. Physically, they're not strong. And then, of course, financially, their debt. I mean, taxes aren't there to build the roads. They just keep increasing the taxes so that you just have less and less money, because they don't want you being able to fight back, because you can fight back with money. They want you living check to check. That just means you're hyper compliant when they tell you you have to believe another lie to get your next paycheck.
I mean, it is an open secret that intel gathered from physical torture, psychological torture, is not very reliable. In many cases, it's flat out bullshit. And but so I'm not saying this is any better, but usually with drugs, you can get better results, yet the physical torture is still done. Do you think there is an element in there that the people who are conducting the torture are actually enjoying it, although they know the intel that they are gathering is most likely not reliable?
I think there's an aspect to this world where that it doesn't go unnoticed, but it goes unexplained, simply because the only explanation is to bring in spiritual realm. And we do see a lot of people today enjoying the burning of the society. They want it to burn. I would like to study those people and where are they getting their sort of spirit, their energetic charge, their etheric charge. Because yes, I do believe that there are evil people. I do believe that our vibration, it appears, determines sort of what spirit we will conduct. I think we're conductivity vessels. And I think if your vibration is one with nature, like clean water, getting to bed on time, love, not filling your mind with John Wick 4, Equalizer 1 to 3, and all these other movies, I think basically you will channel what people would say would be a good spirit.
Mhm.
And I believe if you throw care to the wind, and I do believe this is why alcohol is pushed through the media with the same psychological manipulation tactics I'm talking about. Caffeine is another one, junk food, and it is a hedonistic sort of program where it's a me, all day, every day sort of societal behavior program. They call it narcissistic in some circles. Other circles will call it completely childlike because you have no ability to think long term about your consequences. But I think the basis of that lifestyle that's programmed into us is about lowering our vibration with certain chemicals. And then I've been that person before. I used to do cocaine and steroids and alcohol. And I can tell you firsthand, I don't have an explanation other than something in the spiritual realm. I could literally feel something coming up through my feet. And if you start talking like this, everybody kind of bends away. But when I was drunk and high, I would feel sort of almost like something fill me up from the feet to the top of the head. And I was this sexual, overly sexual, violent, like lots of bar fights, aggressive, even with my friends and my companions at the time. Like, what is that? And then I wanted to commit suicide so many different times when I was unhealthy. I never, no disrespect, I don't want to disrespect people that actually put maybe the knife to their own skin, because that never happened with me. But the suicidal thoughts were always there. What is that? And then so there's like a disrespecting, like whatever was there, just sort of hated that I was living. And then when I got completely clean, all of it went away. It went away like it was like 100%. No more suicide. I wasn't overly sexual. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't fighting anymore. And the higher I went, like the farther I went away from these substances, all this great loving, connecting circumstances kind of came to me, the most loving people. It was almost like I was getting loved as a program out of the invisible. Like, here's some success in this area, go to Brussels, have some, go on an adventure. And I didn't even know I was even considered for this talk, and then it just lands right on my lap. And what are the chances of 30 medical doctors saying, yeah, Jason would be good to talk? I mean, let's be honest, how am I getting there? So as for the people, these torturers I see it, yeah, that old native proverb from the story here in North America is that there's two wolves in everybody, the evil wolf and the wolf of light. And whichever one you feed is what you will become, and it will dominate you. And I think by feeding ourselves junk food and takeout, and let me be honest, Judas, I think the people ruling us have all this ancient knowledge sequestered. And they know, well, we'll call the fast food like fast food. And I think they know it sort of channels this darkness into us. And I think they know this about alcohol. That's why it's at every hotel. Like when we go to hotels, it's so sad that there's a mini bar and it's always got to have chips in it and M&Ms and junk food. And I'm like, because I've heard the biblical scholars say, Satan is the realm of this world, the king of this realm. And then the more I look around, I'm like, there's something to this. because why isn't there live fruit or live vegetables or inside this mini fridge when you go to the hotels? And as you're traveling, you all know, to get to this hotel or to your destination, the whole highway's littered with death-centric food choices that would choke a maggot. I mean, the maggots wouldn't even eat it. And so what's going on here with this process that I've become very familiar with, where it seems like they're trying to make us dark? So yeah, I would have no hesitation saying that anybody torturing people like this would, yeah, be alcohol drinkers. Watch John Wick 1 through 4. Probably smoked some dope in their lives, did some coke, drinking wine at night, drinking coffee in the morning, because I think all these things lower our vibration, because Nikola Tesla said everything is vibration, something to that. And the people who are ruling us definitely work in the vibrational world more than they work in the physical realm. So I wonder, I really wonder what we don't know, and why so many people today are inherently evil at the just bang from 2020. They're completely going along with the agenda. And when I say that, I don't want to say, oh, say a nurse going and attacking someone with the pushing the lie under their skin. How about the ultimate evil? How about we redefine the ultimate evil of taking your own life? Like they said in the Bible, like pushing the lie under your own skin, like going to sit down and volunteering to snuff out your own life. Why don't we have that as the top echelon evil, so that people can understand this is probably, because if you won't protect yourself, like if you won't save yourself and you won't sort of shield yourself from evil, what are the chances you'll do that shields someone else from evil? It's probably zero.
Yeah. You just mentioned that these people like to see society burn, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
So actually, Paris, for instance, is burning literally right now.
Correct.
And yes, it has to do with the retirement age, but the bigger anger is that Macron, which is an anagram for monarch,
Right.
yeah, Macron bypassed the parliament and yeah, turned it into a law by decree. And that is why people are so angry. He has this top-down government style, and yeah, I guess the French are no longer having it. And but I think in general, that top-down government style has never really gone away. And I think it is an outdated model and that it will fall apart. So what do you see right now?
Well, in regards to the French situation, I would suggest there a lot of 85% of mind control is based on repetition. So throughout history, we as viewers on the TV do get exposed to repetitive content of protests, especially in France, where they're burning stuff in the street. So if you were exposed to this as the pathway of protest in France, and you want to go let some energy out, the first thing that will come to your mind is all the repetitive content you were exposed to in the past was just burning stuff down in the street. This makes no sense, because if you're going to burn anything down, it shouldn't be the assets of the people, because the people still need the roads, they still need to get to work. People who are delivering bread and the famous croissants and the chocolate, I mean, they still got to make a living. And so it's good to think about it two ways. If it's organic to the people and they're burning their own country down, it only makes them more dependent on government, which is what they don't want. Also, I would suspect there were some provocateurs that would start the burning, and just continue this illogical cycle of burning down it's like shitting in the own place you're supposed to live, making your town worse, which makes you more dependent on government. So if you are going to protest, a peaceful protest sort of around a government facility, and stand, maybe 100 people deep in a circle right around the whole block, and say, we are no longer allowing the politicians to be at the reins of power. You are all fired. This is our vote of non-confidence. You are not allowed into these historical buildings in order to execute the charge. We remove the electrical charge. You are no longer in charge. We no longer give you our energy, which means you can no longer use our energy against us. And just tell them that. And if you are going to burn something down that matters, and make sure it's not an innocent victim, but someone, if you're going to curse and swear about a particular person in a pub, well, where's their house? I mean, are you going to burn their car, or are you just going to burn your neighbor's car? What makes more sense? It makes no sense whatsoever, this line of protest that you go out and act like a rabid animal instead of doing something logical and rational. And I tell people, this is all about power and energy, magic, etheric force, because all you need to do is start keeping your energy for yourself. You don't have to really go out of your house in the initial stages of protest. They poison you to take away your power. They poison your brain through the TV and the movie screen to take away your power. They forcibly indoctrinate you in government schools and give you job focus and resume building instead of you having business plan comprehension and running your own business. If you want to rebel against the system, and it is an energetic system, start folding your own energy back into your own life. Stop poisoning yourself. It's very beneficial financially not to spend money on narcotics or alcohol or coffee, and really start shutting the TV down. Take control of your time energy, your time resources. Stop scrolling social media. If you're on social media, either be planting these seeds or starting your own business. But don't scroll, and don't let them steal your energy into their system. And start going back into the country. Hey, kitty, start going back into the country where you're more in touch with, this is where we go back to a bit of a spiritual aspect. Their system is a satanic system. The cities are not natural living habitats for humans. They're like well-decorated prisons, soon to be poorly decorated prisons. So start a migration back to the country and get in touch with God's food. Is different than the food at the grocery store, because you're in control of God's food. If you're in the city, I don't care if you're a vegan or you eat meat, you're a truckitarian, which means you're all rely on trucks. And that means if they shut the trucks off in their satanic closed system, you don't eat. So you gotta understand is that you're in these systems for dependency. The water gets piped in through their pipes. The trucks bring in their food. The education is by their curriculum. And understand this is all. It looks like it's eugenic, but it's actually, what eugenics is just, sort of a depopulation agenda of the weak genetics. But this is actually an anti-God, anti-creator, anti-sun agenda. That's what it is. They want you completely separated from the things that are free, that give you life and happiness on this planet. God's food, God's water, God's sun, God's rivers, God's shelter. And that's why this sort of evil cult ran over to North America about 600 years ago. They weren't really looking for gold. There was a sort of evil entity that said, hey, there's people living in harmony with God's plan over North America in these little teepees, right? They would clothe themselves with God's clothes and eat the fish, and this evil entity says, no, how are we going to get all these people into the city? And they even did the same tactics in North America. Even I learned as a kid in the North American schools, they killed all the buffalo, hundreds of millions of buffalo, just so that they could starve their enemies and bring them into the Aboriginal or First Nations reservations. And if you want to know what a 15-minute city will look like eventually, go to a native reservation in North America. They're surrounded by polluting industries all around them. Ford, Alcoa, Domtar. So the whole area is polluted, and they're always on the native reservation, sending in the alcohol, sending in the drugs. There are no drug dealers. They're all connected to the government, and they surround them too with Taco Bell and Wendy's and McDonald's. And the poor people on these reservations, again, the goal was to separate them from nature and control their access to everything they need to be independent, and then slowly poison them and slowly turn off that access to the point where they just vaporize off the planet. This isn't, I have to be honest, this is no way can be a group of people in a boardroom coordinating all this over thousands of years. There has to be a central etheric force sort of guiding humans like sort of etheric puppets to do its bidding. And the sooner we get this old topic back on the table, I think we can start understanding what we got to do and what we're really dealing with here.
Yeah, I totally agree that ultimately what is pulling the strings here is not human.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And do you think there is a way to, yeah, how shall I put this, to have a more natural life and technology both at the same time?
I completely believe that, because again, it's the heart of the user. Is it the white wolf in the ancient native proverbs over here, or is it the dark wolf? So I think the heart and the color of the heart of the person using the technology, because it's great to talk to you, Judith, free of charge on this conference application. And it's great to share this stuff. So this is great, because if you had something I needed, or I had something you needed, we can communicate in a heartbeat. Yes, of course, but this technology wasn't designed by people with good hearts. And if we could just teach people that we can be hijacked by either force. We can be hijacked by a good force or a dark force, and it depends on really our thoughts and our health. What's odd about this is it all comes back to health. But we can see through that lens is why health was the number one enemy of the state. Like they used to call people that wanted to work out and eat healthy, they categorize it as a psychiatric disorder now. There's all kinds of attacks on health where the healthy person is never brought into the limelight, but the sick person is. And the way humans work, they always go to where the attention is being given out. We're being led down this very unhealthy path, because when we're healthy inside and out, when we control our thoughts and we don't watch, the TV is dark at its very core, because if you go watch anything today, you're just watching paid actors hack and butcher and murder themselves on the screen with various scripts. And I really believe that lowers your vibration. The bad food lowers the vibration, the unhealthy water, the lack of sunlight, the lack of exercise, it just keeps going down. And I think there's this gigahertz range where our sort of spiritual immunity has a hole in it, and we can be driven around by other souls that don't have our best interests at heart, that really enjoy chaos. And I think we share the space with these entities, and they sort of lay in wait for sort of an opportunity to drive one of our meat suits around. And I think the more love and connection and healthier we are, the less likely that would happen. And that's why the schools are full of chips and hot dogs and pizza and wireless radiation. There's no way a kid can be healthy in this environment. There's no way anybody can be healthy really shopping at a grocery store without a PhD in nutrition. There's just no way. And I think this is all set up by purpose. I think we're dealing with something much larger than most people could ever comprehend.
Mm. Yeah, and of course, all your heroes on TV and in the movies, they drink whiskey all day long and still save the world.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the degradation of the hero and say the last Avengers movie where Thor had a bit of a mental breakdown. So he, is categorized as having a bit of a mental slip. And then he's drunk with some other aliens playing video games. And he's overweight. He has a big beer belly. And even when he comes back, I mean, there's this grand reemergence of Thor. And you thought he would have whipped himself into shape before the big fight. And he still has a beer belly. And then, of course, the female Supergirl saves the day. Thor couldn't even do it, had to be the female. And there's reasons why all these stories are just driven into our psyche. It's because psychology is simple. What we see is what we will be. And so there's all this alcohol consumption. What about the dirty cop movies? I mean, there would never be any dirty cop movies 50 years ago. And then they became, this group knows how to do, it's called the Fabianistic approach. It's like an inch by inch approach where you don't really notice it because it's happening slowly over time. So they'd riddle in like one dirty cop movie, and then they coordinate the Oscars to give that guy the best actor. And then all of a sudden the floodgates opens. Everybody wants to do a dirty cop movie. He's this nice cop during the day running coke at night or prostitution rings. And then what the average person doesn't understand is, well, being a cop is heralded as something good in our society. So you're going to get a big migration there for jobs, right? Because the school system tells us to get jobs instead of being independent. And then when they get in these situations, it's being proven, this is proven, that the brain stores every movie it's ever seen its entire life, almost like an old jukebox. And so that cop could be on a drug bust, and there's some coke and some money there, and none of the other cops have come yet. And so it goes into the jukebox, brings out the dirty cop movie, and then he just starts stuffing the money into his belt. And this is proven how people interact with their movies and their media through their behavior, is that those aren't movies, they're options. And when a particular situation occurs in your life, you go to the best option that you downloaded from the media. And if it's a dirty cop situation, you're going to run the dirty cop program. And all the movies that we've seen over the past 30 years, they're all horrendously immoral, unethical, dark, evil, rotting, fearful, terror-filled. And of course, they'll intertwine all the viruses movies, like I Am Legend with Will Smith, and Contagion with Matt Damon, World War Z with Brad Pitt, Dustin Hoffman with Outbreak. And so when the news, which is supposed to be real, which is as fake as the movies, rolls a story that is as fake as any movie ever, that there's a viral attack, the human psyche goes back into the jukebox, takes out that record and plays that record, that they should be afraid. And the people who make these movies, Judith, they're very calculative. Let's take I Am Legend with Will Smith. I don't know if you remember that in New York City. So it started off with someone trying to help cure cancer and then turned everybody into zombies. So that's like an anti-cancer healing program on its own, but that's not what I want to talk about. But so how bad can a virus get in terms of your personal impact? Will Smith lost his wife, lost his daughter, and lost his dog. And so those successive losses are supposed to like kind of rally up in your human psyche to make you so afraid of anything like that rolls on the TV, that when it does roll on the TV, as fake as it rolled on the movie screen, you're reacting like your entire family's life is in danger, because that's actually what's being put inside your human psychic behavior system by that one movie. And it's been shown that every movie you've ever seen in your life, every TV show, every second of your real life, by the way, is stored, and the data is never dumped, and it's always looking for the appropriate behavior in the most repetitive content that you store in your library. So what does win out with what record you're going to play, what behavior you're going to act out, has to do with repetition. And the repetition has only been dark and death-centric, for lack of a better word. So this is why everybody's sort of getting controlled to be the smiling assassins. Like the school teacher, I know all these school teachers, big goofy grin on their face, drive into school, kids are eating poison, cancer-causing Wi-Fi ripping through the school, and they're going to teach the kids to cut off their own penises, right? Or that this is an option. And then when that woman comes home, she's like, I'm a great human being. And the reason this is all happening is because of this behavior modification through the media, where we're getting given our roles through the productions that go on our screen. So I hope that makes some sense. How's Kitty doing? He really likes to take center stage.
Yeah, and she has been sleeping until I sat down and started the computer here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is her behavior. The attention has to be on her all the time.
All the cats are like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a way, we could say that is pre-teaching.
Yeah, or like preconditioning. And they do start it with the men. I mean, not in Europe so much, but in North America, I think 95% of men are circumcised. So we're getting disconnected from love, disconnected from ourselves, put in a fearful state. And really, we're very compliant and obedient. And if you go back to the history of circumcision, wow, where do we find ourselves again? Back in Media, back in Babylon, back in Egypt, where they used to circumcise their slaves just to keep them in line. And then if a slave escaped, they would simply ask everybody to hold up their kilts as men, because only the slaves were circumcised. So you're going to know a slave got out simply by the shape of their penis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the religious circumcision because you are in a special bond with a particular god.
Yeah, absolutely. And that bond would be a trauma bond. It wouldn't be like a safe bond that you're supposed to have with your mother. And that bond would wreck all the other bonds you were supposed to have, because how can you trust any bond or relationship ever again when that one was forced on you? And they know how the mind works. This is not about a clean penis. I mean, when is the last time? I mean, I've never been at work in a corporation where someone in the lunchroom said, Jim, bastard, he's sick again, affected penis because he wasn't circumcised. You never hear anybody giving the excuse to the medical officer of a corporation, yeah, I'm not circumcised. I got those recurring penis infections because my penis has the hood on it and I can't clean it properly. So these are all fabricated stories by evil people. And a lot of humans, all it takes is repetition, Judith. I could tell you, cut off your whole penis. I mean, this could be done. As long as the repetition is there, Judith, anything's possible with this dark way. I mean, this way that the human behavior is manufactured, it's manufactured by repetition. That's all.
That reminds me of the goddess Sibyl. She had priests that during this ritual, it was called the Taurobolium, and an ox was slaughtered, a white ox,
Right.
and there was a wooden platform, and the priests standing underneath that platform, they would bathe in that blood.
Right.
And that ritual was to Sibyl. And these priests that were standing underneath and bathing in the blood, they castrated themselves, all in honor to the goddess.
Right. And whoever started that could not have been human, because no human's going to say, you know what, let's go kill an ox and cut around. I mean, the priests, if they were men, obviously, cut their own scrotums off, or who knows what depth of that castration ritual was. This is not human behavior. This is, something non-human. And in all forms of magic, white magic, black magic, even tattoo artists would. I remember reading a book once. It was like from the 1600s on tattoos, and it was like, don't pierce the skin and make make the person bleed, because the entities that can infect human, the spirit, they love blood. They say if you put blood around, they'll always come. So this sort of knowledge, or people suspecting this based on trial and error, I'm starting to put this together in one lifetime. I'm sure other people have put it together, but yeah, this, like castrating themselves, killing an animal, no human's going to make this stuff up just off the top of their head on a Friday afternoon out on the patio. There's something else driving this, absolutely.
Yeah, but yeah, you are correct. But I also find it shocking what you can humans make believe in. I mean, the shit that people believe in is a huge part of the problem here.
But you can make people believe in anything based on that simple repetition model. They can be anything. And what's real and what's not, it just depends what repetition that person was exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been on both sides of the spectrum, kind of dependent, led by the repetition and unhealthy. And then, of course, independent as an independent businessman, healthy. And I can tell you that there's a different spiritual influence on either side.
Mm-hmm.
And if I started eating crickets and not being able to go in the sun and only having Starbucks to eat at, and the weed shop, because this is what these 15-minute cities are going to be like. They're only going to have unhealthy retail outlets to make us vibrate even lower. So maybe we can channel in some more demons for the friends that are already possessed, like Gates and Fauci and those people. But I even sort of forget what I was talking about. But yeah, I've been on both sides, and the good side is it makes you feel calmer. You're doing sort of things that you're supposed to. You're being walking in line with your destiny. You're parallel with the light, or what's good and what's moral, what's ethical, protecting children, protecting the female, protecting the seniors, protecting the disabled, and trying to push the tribe ahead into better days. And when I was dark and evil and sort of demonic, it was me all day, every day. I didn't care about anybody else. The seniors didn't matter. I didn't care about my kid. I didn't care about anybody else's kid. I just wanted to have fun, just wanted to have sex and do drugs and put in the minimal amount of effort to get money to keep that process going. And I can't really explain it, but I know a lot of people are starting to feel that this is a spiritual tug of war starting inside of each of us, but have bigger ramifications outside of us.
Mm-hmm. Many times people start experimenting with drugs and alcohol because they are trying to find something that relaxes them. And maybe the first glass, or it does relax you, but then after that it's downhill just from there, and pretty fast usually. So what would you advise or suggest what people try instead?
Well, I think we all want to do the hero's journey and have some big, great adventure. It's inside all of us. So we want to conquer something. We want to do something great. And what people try to vision is that is outside of themselves, some adventure outside of themselves. I believe the original hero's journey is casting off anything that sedates us to the pain. I mean, you said we want to relax, but why don't we try not relaxing? Why don't we take away all the sedative, tranquilizing substances and expose ourselves to the reality of this world? And the hero's journey is sort of it's a baptism by fire. It's almost like you open a blast furnace door and the fire engulfs you and burns you to the ground. And then you rebuild yourself and saying, okay, where's this pain really coming from? Well, maybe. So the first hero's journey is being strong enough to feel the pain of your reality here on whatever place we live. Okay. And then you start drawing the courage and the strength that you're okay walking this realm without the sedative substances that take your natural body off course. You can't make good decisions sedated, just like you can't drive a car sedated. And then maybe you have the strength at that point, because it's like lifting weights, right? You lift 10 pounds the first day, 15 pounds the second week, maybe 20 pounds in the third month, and you just keep building your strength. And then eventually you go so long without sedation, you start connecting with your body in a loving way. You're going to work and you're not afraid to feel the pain of the emptiness and soullessness of your occupation. Maybe it's government work, it's completely soulless and contradictory to what the tribe needs to be better. And so you're like, oh, that really hurt. That sucks. Like, I thought it was a great career as a nurse or a nurse's assistant, as a teacher. But now with the blinders off, I see my workmates, they're drunk on Friday, ripped up on coffee during the day. They're not have a good grasp of the machinery God gave them to deal with this reality. And they're off the path. Plus what we're teaching the kids, maybe this is a teacher potentially saying, this isn't right. And if I have the coffee, I don't feel that. And if I have the alcohol at night, I don't feel how illogical and irrational my behavior in this curriculum is. So there's that hero's journey, right? Feeling our pain. And then even as we're migrating out to maybe our own business, it might take 3 years, Judith, to go from a profession that you trained for 3 or 4 years and you pull out of it. The pain of staying on track, the pain of dedicating to that goal, giving up, like drinking with the family and mindless hours in front of the TV. There's your hero's journey, like going up the mountain, bleeding. Everything's bleeding, like Jesus on the cross. You're doing the hero's journey. You're going to accomplish greatness, and it comes at a cost. And the cost is feeling the pain of this world, and then understanding, because you chose not to sedate or distract yourself with these tranquilizing substances, you have the firm like you have the mind function to plan all this out and execute it, right? And you can stay and you pull out, you pull right out, and you start vectoring skyward, and it's like you reach that escape velocity, and then you're just gone. And I've hit that escape velocity decades ago, where I'm just like, every day's better, every relationship's better, every day's more love, every day's more connection. There's days where, I don't vector up, it's like flat, and I'm like, oh God, what happened here? And I have to go back and say, am I going to bed on time? Am I not getting enough water? Did that chocolate cake at my favorite restaurant really take me down a lot more forcefully than it did when I was younger? Am I getting so old now at 53 that maybe I can't have chocolate? Am I smart enough to process that? Am I courageous enough to face that fact that my liver's slowing down, my kidney's slowing down, and I want to give my best to the tribe? Like I quit alcohol and cocaine and steroids more for the tribe than for me, because I want everybody to be better. And I know my vibration ripples out across everybody without me even opening my mouth. So these things are all important. If anybody wants to start off, working against the system, just go on the hero's journey of facing this. And it's a dark world. There's no rewards here. That's why it's a hero's journey. There's no cotton candy. No one's going to be giving you a big hug and telling you it's going to be what you see and what you feel when you don't have the coffee and the booze and the sugar and the flour and the nicotine, when you don't have that stuff inhibiting the creator's meat machinery. I guarantee you're going to want to run in the other direction and crawl back into your hole. And if you're a hero, you won't. So it's up to each person to know that.
Mm. I just noticed that we didn't talk about the pharaonic influences here at all, but
Right.
it doesn't matter. I enjoyed our conversation very much. It simply
Yes.
means you have to come back.
Yeah, I got no problem coming back about and all the pharaonic and Egyptian symbology. It's just because we're really tied to that culture. That culture is still alive and well, but in like secret societies. And they would just sit down, and of course the sedative substances were for the slave class. The Egyptians had the beer, invented the beer, so everybody else is sedated, and then they would just sit down and saying, yeah, did you see this, did you see this trend, I was thinking this, what are you thinking? And whatever I was just talking about, but the spirits and the good behavior, bad behavior, health and ill health, they were like, yeah, this is really what's going on. And they were really obsessed with life after death, right? They put a lot of their people think they're just goofing around, guessing at stuff. We'll wrap this guy in a mummy, and yeah, it's for life after death. Everybody's like laughing at them, and I'm like, no, hold on a second. There's a lot of spiritual concepts they nailed down. They have a more firm understanding, like the Egyptian Book of the Dead. If you read it, there's all kinds of odd stuff in there that if you sit with long enough, you realize they were well more advanced than we are.
Yeah,
And
I didn't read that. I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but that was also very interesting and kind of revealing.
yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that we don't know, but the Egyptian iconography, you can see it in so many different, even on 9/11, just to give the people a little taste before they come back for the second interview. Like on 9/11, the only three buildings that were not destroyed around the Twin Towers was a step pyramid, a regular pyramid, and a Dome of Solomon, actually called the Solomon Building. And all those are from the ancient Middle East with ancient ties, the Egyptian culture. There's all kinds of odd. I mean, there's an Egyptian obelisk, a real Egyptian obelisk in Central Park called Cleopatra's Needle. People don't know why it's there. I mean, I do. The average person just walked by and go, oh, that's odd. And if you ask an average person, they might think it was made in a Hollywood set. It wasn't. It was actually transported from Egypt to New York City. There's so much Egyptian iconography, and it's because the people ruling us have sequestered most of their knowledge from the ancient Egyptians, known as the ancient Egyptian priests known as the Gionum. Michael Tessarian and David Whitehead taught me that, and that it's a G, and that's where we get the G on the Freemasonic symbol, is the Gionum. And the Gionum knew how to manipulate the public through psychological manipulation and poisoning. Because the more poisoned you are, the deeper the psychological manipulation bites. So if you can use mind control and brainwashing against the public and get them all ripped up on chemicals at the same time, well, you're more than in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And when I look at Akhenaten, he doesn't look really human to me. You know, the elongated skull, the pear-shaped body, the drop jawline. He has a serpentine look.
Yeah, he has that look that is so prevalent in some other teachings with the elongated skull, that they're either not human or maybe bred a certain different way. but this group really does believe that they're remnants of sun gods, and they believe they have the right to rule and kill at will. So just the belief alone is dangerous, regardless of if this is true or not.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't want anybody walking around thinking they have the right to rule and kill and farm the other humans on this planet. That guy needs to be institutionalized immediately.
Yeah, but what a lot of people do instead is they're standing in the
And
street
honoring them.
with their
Yeah,
little flags.
Yeah.
Yay, the queen.
Yeah, the queen, absolutely, with her gold carriage. Right. Yes, absolutely. That's a whole other interview on its own.
Okay, so thank you, Jason, for coming, and I wish you all the best in Brussels. And I hope we will see it. It will be probably recorded, yeah?
Absolutely. It'll be recorded. I'll send it out on the email. And if anybody wants to get on my private email list and get like information like this sort of slow drip to them for free, they just email support@freedomfromselfsabotage.com. And my assistant will just take that email and put it on my private email list. And you can get all kinds of very interesting information on my private email list, but I can't post it on social media because, of course, they don't want to be outed. This group does not want to be outed at all.
I will join that list now.
Oh, you will love the stuff for sure.
Okay, so that was it, Night Flight for today with the wonderful Jason Christoff, and we see you all next time, and hopefully then we will go into the Pharaoh subject. Until next time, stay safe and sound and enjoy your life. Bye-bye.